Ta-da! And welcome to Josef's Hi-Fi in my pursuit for sumptuous sound. Welcome to the art of silence. This is indeed as close to an anechoic chamber as I will find in my neighborhood. And in this next few seconds, I just want you to appreciate everything in between the words I say, because this is about the quietest environment I can possibly create within my own home. Thanks to the use of a few towels and the acoustic panels in my studio, this is as quiet as I can get. How can we truly appreciate the high fidelity in what we are chasing, especially in music, if we can't have a level playing field to appreciate the art of silence? There are so many factors that we don't think about, including the gurgling in my stomach, the pitter-patter of little dogs walking up the hallway on the tiles, the hum of a refrigerator in the background, the ultrasonic frequency of an iPhone charger plugged into a wall socket. When the phone is not connected to it, there's a high-pitched frequency that's emitted. The capacitors sitting in the power transformers that drive your monitors, the quietness of the fans humming away in your iMac or PC computer, the wind blowing in the background, the leaves rustling in the garden. These are all sounds which just naturally happen and are part of life. But when you really treasure high fidelity hi-fi, you have to appreciate getting your sound environment just right. And that means we need to do our best to create a nice, quiet environment. And so we return to the real world. Again, no music playing, no nothing. Just natural noises I can hear in the background. The birds. I can hear the hum of something electronic in the house. It's the snoring of the dogs. There's a baby monitor in the background. There's a lot of things going on. So silence is really, really important. Otherwise, there's no contrast when you hear that strike on a snare or that strum on a guitar. There's something so pure about it. But speaking of which, we can all then argue the fact that we could grab a pair of headphones. These are a spare pair I keep for when I DJ. I like this particular pair of Denons because it's a very flat sound and I think they're fantastic. I'm not really a headphone user at all. I don't like weight capturing me around on my head or anything like that. And of course, it can get hot after a while depending on different styles and things you use. But of course, it is a welcome thing because we're going to isolate the sound around us when we slip them on. Then we can jump up to something like this. $150 pair of headphones, $20 pair of earmuffs. So these are really designed for when you're using your power tools and things like that to isolate the noise. I can't remember the exact reading, something about 27 dB reduction. I can't recall the exact specifics. That aside, the point is, as soon as we pop these onto our heads, the noise will instantly dissipate. You can still hear things, but not at the level you did. It's the closest we're going to come to this chamber environment I mentioned earlier. But you know, even so much so, if you were wearing a pair of earbuds or the AirPods or any of those sort of in-ear types of things, and then pop this around it, you are going to get an earth-shatteringly amazing difference. Now, this room noise is something that is greatly appreciated the next time you visit your local cinema or movie theatre. You'll notice there's usually curtains or drapes across the walls and that. And when you walk in, things sound quieter. We've got all these things to absorb sound so they get a nice neutral sound. And another thing, if you've ever watched or understand how they make TV shows, there's usually someone recording room noise, someone that's gone in there prior to the actual scene being shot, where it's usually just a couple of people with a microphone and the recording device, and they'll literally just have a microphone there, whether it's just a room mic or something like that, and they're literally for however many minutes or hours just recording the sound of that room and what's happening. And that's why when you watch TV shows and someone walks into a room and it's quiet, you can hear that room noise, and it's something that's happening we don't always process in our minds. But once you start becoming aware of things like this is why you're listening to it. A dog's just walked into the dog flap behind me, and I can hear the pitter-patter of their footprints, and I can still hear the dog flap swinging back and forth until the magnet catches it. It's happening. I can hear it. You may not have. I'm going to give a even more interesting example at the end of this video. This video is being shot in the year 2022, so of course we have just had the Winter Olympics just wrap up at the moment, and as a result, sound quality just in general, and speaking of silence, just really briefly, I couldn't help but notice we had a lot of the presenters with their face masks on. So instantly, as soon as we do that, any more than if I take my hands and put them over my mouth, the sound becomes quite distorted. And this is really a big deal about talking about silence and the sound and that. Well, we're just trying to capture the pureness of what has been captured in a recording studio or live performance. But all these little things. So remember, we're in the year 2022. And with all the evolution of sound, it should be perfect. Spatial awareness. It's probably what we don't get with a form of pure silence. I mean, we can have quietness that we have now. And indeed, we can have in a anechoic chamber basically complete silence. But let's just look at relative silence in that sense. Spatial awareness is a fascinating thing. I'm one of these kooky little people who'll be out there walking on the streets, and often I'm walking from a car and I see the entrance to the shop or the post office, wherever I need to go, and I'll deliberately shut my eyes. Not because sometimes it's a bright day and I'm just trying to protect my eyesight, but because I like challenging the fact that I can carry on as if I were blind, so to speak. So I can analyze where I'm going and saying that's going to be about 56, 72 steps, something like that. And I start walking. But what I'm really listening to is I'm hearing. I can hear how close things are starting to become around me. I can hear the gutter approaching, where I can hear it with my shoes coming near it, where I'm going, it's coming near. Sometimes I'm obviously going to open my eyes just to make sure I don't trip over, but just testing myself to see how close I'm getting and knowing what's happening. Any more than with a temperature change as you walk, and as demonstrated by Dave Rat, where he will light up a bunch of candles and slide it in front of the front of house audio, and you'll see how the sound will bend. Well, all of these things are actually happening. Our brain is processing it the whole time. It's that you start to becoming more and more aware of what's actually happening with spatial sound, so to speak. Like I've always said, you can have the very greatest in hi-fi. I could be lined up with PS Audio or Macintosh preamps and then power amps for each individual driver. You know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of nothing but the very best equipment, which can be completely destroyed by the innocent act of, yeah, I wouldn't mind a drink. Can you come and bring me a drink? Walking into the room, cutting straight in front of my sound field, and you can see something's happened. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. Sometimes it's the simplest things, and like I'm trying to demonstrate with the silence here, there's never going to be a perfect environment for many of us. So we just try and achieve what we can do, and I think you can't enjoy your beautiful hi-fi and all your wonderful music without sometimes just trying to enjoy that moment of silence you will get. For me, as I said, with all those distractions and things happening around me that go on during the day, sometimes late into the evening when there's slightly more peace in the world or in the town, can be the way to go. It's not always going to happen, and I'm not always going to be up at 2 a.m. to listen to music. But when these little moments happen and you can go, wow, what a perfect silence we can enjoy, that's what we do. It's any more than people walking into a room and constantly clapping, looking for acoustics, looking for that sound, that wet, the dry noises that happen. All the documentaries you've probably seen on Abbey Road Studio talk about this in exceptional depth. And sometimes things like musicians throwing their rugs on the ground just to try and absorb some sound. It's truly fascinating stuff. The parametric speaker. We're talking about something going above 40,000 kilohertz here. So again, the normal hearing aid range, as we've discussed in a previous video, we're usually talking about the frequency response in music. We're always talking about 0 to 20,000 kilohertz. It's pretty much where we are. And again, as we get older, we're sort of losing that top echelon down to, as we start to become, into our prime of our lives, getting into your 50s or 60s, you've probably lost the 19, 18, 17, maybe 16,000. That's sort of where we're sort of, starting to struggle for some people. That sort of part. We've lost it. That was in the younger years when we didn't often have the equipment to appreciate the magic of what we were hearing. That's just a reality of life. What I'm talking about here, though, is we're going beyond that to the inner ear that is basically within the skull. Dave Rapp will talk about this a bit better in a video. I'm going to pop a link to that. It's well worth watching how you can hear it. And also, again, I come back to that spatial awareness. There's more happening than you think when the eyes are being closed with how your hearing's all working, and how sometimes any more than, if you're like me, you've had a haircut and for the next 24 hours it still feels like the hair is there even though it's been cut. It's an incredible feeling and something we all have experienced, but probably not until you're watching this video you're really starting to go, he's making some really good points there. So before we carry on, let's just take a moment now and go back to what I spoke of before regarding anechoic chambers, or non-reflective rooms, designed to stop reflections of either sound or electromagnetic waves. They are also often isolated from energy entering from their surroundings. The combination means that the person exclusively hears direct sounds, in effect simulating being. For really, if we don't understand what we're basically referencing as a base 0 level to silence, we have nothing else to compare anything to. When we talk about dB readings and SPL readings, how can we reference anything without the point itself of 0? So if that brings us to perfect sound, that now brings me to a demonstration. Now what we have here is not cheap, nasty equipment. We have what I would consider to be a very reasonable stepping stone to anyone who wants to become an audiophile. We have quality brands with quality products. You tell me where I have gone wrong exactly here, other than the source material. Okay, now we are here in little Sprout's room. So, of course, we've got a little bit of music playing, which you can clearly hear, by a group called Ria Rosa. The song is called Better Than Nothing, and I'm playing it via my iPhone. Now you can hear it, and I can hear it. Here's where it gets interesting. No trickery here. Here is our Sprout PS Audio amplifier, and we're using these KEF LS50 meta speakers. So let's just bring my phone into the frame here, and you'll all be aware of your volume knobs here on the side. You've got the down and you've got the up. And what's interesting, if we just obviously turn it up a little bit here, you can hear we're increasing the volume. If we turn this volume down, as you can clearly see me doing, we get to the bottom. I can't turn it down anymore. We're at the bottom. This is nothing. This is silence. Hang on a minute. So let us try something else. I need an extra finger here to slide down, and here we are. There's your volume right there. Now, if I stretch my thumb over to it and bring it up, so silence, even in some good quality equipment, is it always going to be a good thing? Well, that now concludes this video. Thank you all for watching. Stay safe. We'll see you in the next one. Toodles.